Welcome back to the Weber Kettle series brought to you by Fogo Charcoal here on Chuds BBQ, everybody. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today we're making some Korean barbecue on the Weber Kettle, and it is going to be delicious. These are some beef ribs. I picked these up at my local Asian supermarket, and if you're ever in Austin, highly recommend going up to H Mart. Super cool place. Meat section is out of control. And these are beef ribs, very similar to the dino ribs you see on the barbecue scene, but instead of cut with the bone, giving you one long bone with a bunch of meat on top, these are cut against the bone on a bandsaw, giving you nice thin strips with 3 little bones in there. Awesome cut, very fun to throw on the grill. And these ones are pretty thick, as opposed to these ones, which I got from Porter Road. I get these all the time. These are much thinner, and both are great. The thicker ones are gonna have a little more chew, the thinner ones are gonna get a little bit more crispy, which I really like, but both are absolutely fantastic. So in Korean barbecue terms, these are known as LA style ribs, or in butchery terms, they're known as flanking cut, which basically just means it's a beef rib sliced against the bones, giving you these nice thin strips. From the looks of it, these are chuck and these are short rib, because these have 3 bones, these have 4, both work great, because they're beef ribs after all. So they got tons of great marbling in there and all that connective tissue, which is what makes beef ribs so good. But because of all that connective tissue, these work really well in a braise or on the smoker, because it's a really low and slow long cook, which is really going to break them down. But because these are so thin and we're going to be grilling them hot and fast, we need to make a marinade, which will help tenderize these a little bit. And while this is a very common cut to see in Korean barbecue, there is another version of the short rib, which is where they take a chunk of bone about this big with the meat on top, and then they butterfly it out. So it's a nice thick strip of meat with 1 bone on one end and the rest is all boneless meat. Then they'll score it to make it a little more tender. That's a fantastic cut as well, but that is a video for another day. So first things first, we need to make a marinade. Marinade for our bulgogi. Galbi? Kalbi? I'm confused.
Hey, what's going on, Brad? I heard you were whipping up some Korean barbecue and you might have some questions. So to start off, I think there are 2 main popular items that most people know of when you hear about Korean barbecue. One of them is bulgogi and the other one is Kalbi. That marinade that most people think about: soy sauce, sesame oil, sesame seeds, garlic, ginger, green onions or scallions, some types of sweeteners. Most of the times it's sugar. Some people might use honey. There might be sodas that are used in there. Usually the ones that I hear most are like 7-Up and Sprite. The other type of ingredient that you might hear a lot of people use is some sort of fruit. One that's been kind of floating around a lot is kiwi. And the one that my family usually uses is Asian Pear. And my mom sometimes uses some papaya. Now the differences between bulgogi and Kalbi. So the loose translation of bulgogi is basically fire meat. Pur meaning fire and gogi meaning meat. So it's kind of interesting that that's what it's called. You don't really necessarily want to cook this over fire. The reason being, bulgogi is usually thin sliced ribeye. Because the meat is so thin, you know, the sugars will burn really, really fast and it might burn up by the time you're done cooking it. So the second one, Kalbi, is probably the most popular version of Korean barbecue, spelled Kalbi or spelled Galbi. They're both the same thing. Kalbi basically means rib. You'll hear sogalbi or tejigalbi. Sogalbi is beef rib, tejigalbi is pork rib. And you won't see a lot of pork rib stuff, you know, in Korean barbecue places. Usually they'll use that for like soups and stews and stuff like that. So generally, in most cases, it'll be beef. Similar marinade. Because the meat is thicker on there than you would have thinly sliced ribeye, you're able to actually cook over the fire and not worry about it overcooking or burning up too much. And when you're cooking something like that, you really want to build as much color and char on it as possible. And Kalbi is similar to what I was talking about with bulgogi, where it is more of a festive sort of food. It's not something that you're probably going to eat every day, but obviously if you go out and get Korean barbecue, you're going out with friends and having a good time of having drinks and stuff like that. But in terms of, you know, price point, you know, Kalbi is definitely more expensive than bulgogi.
Thank you, Joe Yim. Marinade includes some soy sauce, some mirin, some sake, some sesame oil, some brown sugar, garlic, a little bit of some chili flake, some black pepper, and some salt. Give that a nice little head start. Next up, some green onion, just the whites, in, as well as 1 Korean pear. In, we're gonna start with half. And finally, a couple knobs of some ginger. That peeler was not cutting it. A couple of knobs in. Oh, that smells so good. Oh, that is lovely. Woo, intense by itself. That's what you're looking for. I'm gonna go in with another chunk of pear. Ah, right in the eye. Beautiful. And as I mentioned, we're trying to tenderize this meat as well as add some wonderful flavor. So that's why we added the pear. Because much like pineapple, it's got an enzyme in it that tenderizes meat. It's not nearly as intense as pineapple, but it'll get the job done. And if you can't find an Asian pear like that, you could use kiwi or a Bosque pear. Those work really well. Or maybe even a small amount of pineapple juice. And just like any other marinade, you can really make this your own. If you want more garlic, add more garlic. But this is looking pretty much perfect to me. Let's throw it on the meat. Now the easiest thing to do would be take your short ribs and throw them into a plastic bag and cover with the marinade. But because they're so thin, they're gonna fold over each other and stick to themselves. So the best bet would be to go through and kind of dip each one of these in a bowl first and then into the bag. But if you're gonna dirty a bowl, you might as well just keep them in there. So in we go with some marinade. I'm just gonna get these nice and coated. We're gonna do some thick ones and some thin ones. And once they're all in there, we're gonna just top them off with the rest. Beautiful. Marination time of these ribs is completely up to you. I'd say 24 hours is gonna be your maximum. 12 hours would be great because you can make it in the morning and have them for dinner. But you don't wanna go too long because that enzyme in there is already working on the meats, and especially on those thin ones, we don't want them to turn to mush. We still wanna have some good texture. And because it's a high quality piece of meat, I wanna taste the beef because we're not just after tenderization, we're also after flavor. So I'm gonna go about 4 hours on these. That way I still get to taste the meat with a nice hint of the marinade while getting some great tenderization. But if you wanna go longer, that's up to you. So I will see y'all in 4 hours. Gotta love a nice, shiny, freshly cleaned Weber. I'll tell you what. Rocking my normal setup today. I'm gonna keep the slow and sear in. I've got the water pan removed. That way we get a bigger grill surface area. And I'm gonna keep the cast iron grill insert in there down below. Not for airflow, but just to catch any drips or anything like that. Keeps grease out of the ashes. And this way we're gonna have some nice 2-zone cooking. Although we're only gonna be cooking on the hot side, it's nice to have a cool zone. So if we get some major flare-ups, we can pull them off real quick. 4 hours later. Let's see how these ribs came out. Ooh, smelling so good. Looking real nice. Gonna pull these out, get some of that excess marinade off of them. They'll be ready for the grill. Looking real nice though. A little bit of a color change on that meat. Good sign. You know the drill from here, folks. Ooh. Oh, that smells so good. Immediately. Get some of these thick guys on there. And this is the real fun part. Just some straight up grilling. You want to flip them fairly periodically just so they don't burn too much on one side. And again, I'm not too afraid of any char on these. You know, those charred bits are super flavorful. Any bitterness you're going to get from anything that's burnt is going to be counteracted by the sweetness in the marinade. And these are just a lot of fun. And if you filled this whole grill up with coals, you could cook a whole bunch of these. Perfect party food, great for feeding a crowd. So much fun. Just trying to get some good color on there. Because again, we got all that fat and connective tissue in there that we definitely want to break down while caramelizing all that extra marinade onto the meat. It's gonna be so good. Tell you what, folks, if you've never grilled some of these cute little ribs before, you are missing out. They're great too, because they don't take very long at all. It's been like 3 minutes, and these are pretty much done. Just flipping meat in the backyard on my Weber Kettle. That's what summer's all about. Is it summer yet? Not quite. And how far you take these is completely up to you. That's looking nice to me. You got some beautiful color on there. Little char never hurt anybody. But what I like to do with these, when cooking a bunch of them, is really caramelize the hell out of some of them, leave some of them a little bit floppier. It's kind of like bacon, you know? Crispy or floppy, up to you. Now I'll throw on some of these thinner ones. Love that sizzle. I mean, come on, folks. Don't you want to be here right now? This is such a fun thing to do. And again, you don't even have to marinate these. Oftentimes when I'm looking for a quick weeknight dinner, I'll just go pick some of these up, put some salt and pepper on them, throw them right on. Nothing wrong with that. Looking good. It's so cool how no matter what country or culture, there's always some sort of live fire cooking. And I gotta say, this is definitely one of my favorites. Tell you what, that sizzle shot never gets old. All right, one more sizzle shot, and these are all coming off of the pit. Smells so good out here. I can't wait any longer. It's time to plate up. I don't know about y'all, but that is a wonderful looking pile of food to me. Let's finish it off with a little bit of some wonderful sesame seeds. And of course, some green onions. Ho, 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 ho. What a beautiful looking pile of food. Got some veg over here. When I was up at H Mart, I picked up some sides. These are some pickled radishes. This is some kimchi over here. And this was sold as a Korean tricolor side dish. Looks like we got a little seaweed salad and some more pickled veg in there. And everything is looking absolutely fantastic. And I need to dive in. Gotta use scissors, folks. It's the only way. Some of these thicker ones fell off the bone a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. But come on, what doesn't look fantastic about that? Nice and juicy. All that wonderful grilled flavor. That marinade still smells great. All right, let's see how this came out, shall we? Oh, it's so good. Wow, that is fantastic. Perfect amount of marinade on there. Seasoned well, it's not overpowering, it's not too salty, too strong, too sweet, any of that. You can still taste that wonderful beefy flavor in there too. Oh man, the thick ones are so good. Got that perfect charcoal grill flavor on there. Nice and tender, surprisingly tender. That is delicious. And like these thicker ones are so tender. I mean, just look at this meat. What don't you want about that? The thinner ones are great, like I mentioned, because they get that char on there. So tender. Super easy to eat, so good. Get a little kimchi in there, shall we? Ooh, that's a good kimchi. Little kimchi, little beef rib, a little bit of rice. Yes, please. I'm gonna eat this entire pile. And we got vegetables on the table. Got a little banchan going on. And yeah, I'm using white guy chopsticks, just because I already had them dirty. Roast me about it. It's kind of like chicken wings, right? Meat off the bone, bite-sized, perfect little party food. And they cook super quick. Next time I get these thin ones, I'm gonna make bone-in beef jerky. I think anyone's ever done that before. That marinade, definitely keeping that recipe around. Well, if this delicious pile of food hasn't convinced you that you need to give this a try, I don't know what else to say. But without further ado, I think it's time for the official taste test. Good girl. All right, y'all, and that is it. That is how to make some Korean barbecue kalbi. I highly recommend giving this recipe a try. It's a really simple marinade, a really quick grill, and is perfect for any occasion. Great for parties. Also, big shout out to Joe Yim. Thank you for walking me through this process and for all your helpful tips along the way. Be sure to check out Joe Yim's channel here on YouTube. He does some great stuff. But if you enjoyed this video, let me know by dropping a like on this video and hitting that subscribe button. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you want to see me cook next. If you do give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to Fogo Charcoal. Thank you for sponsoring the Weber Kettle series. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace.